we're still gathering information. Sometimes that process occurs quickly. Sometimes the information comes a little bit more slowly, but we're still in really probably the information gathering stage with him. That, and given the fact that he's still in an active legal situation, there's not much that I can comment specifically on his case at this point. But as we get to the point where we have enough information to determine the next steps, we will certainly do so. The last thing I'll say before I open it up to you all is, look, we don't want to be up here on day one, talking about this. Our players don't, our coaches don't, our fans certainly don't. Shoot, I don't think you all do. And so, we're going to obviously, deal with, that situation on a day-to-day basis as appropriate. But our focus, will really be on, preparing the team for our opener against Cincinnati in September. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
You have to wait until his Quinshon's legal situation is resolved before you sign him.
Jeff, I'd say in Quinshon specifically, it's to be determined. Right? We are still gathering information. So in terms of those decisions, signing, being at camp and everything like that, it's honestly probably too early to make any type of determination. So as we gather information, we'll have a better view on that.
Is not signing him or letting him go, is that on the table?
I'm sorry?
Is not signing him or letting him go, is that on the table?
Dan, the way I would say is I have learned in many of these off-field situations not to go too far into the future. We'll deal with the day-to-day. You end up using a lot of sort of mental energy in terms of hypotheticals and things of that nature, and rather we'll focus on gathering the information and then making the right decision.
So were you satisfied with your vetting process with him?
Yeah, I'll tell you this, Tony. For all of our players, we spend a ton of time and energy, use a variety of sources, background legal to make sure we understand the people. Like any process, you always look to refine it. You always look to improve it. And one of the things that we probably looked through in, I'd say, this space in general, is really the education process. One thing that we've learned is with, domestic violence issues, there's no, target population, target, demographic, target, history. And, one of the things that we want to make sure that we do with all members of our organization is provide the resources, support, and education so that all of them can have safe, healthy domestic partnerships.
Andrew, looking back at the last 2 years, though, this is the third player that has faced something like this. You had Devin and Mike Hall, too. I guess just what more do you feel like you guys need to be doing? Is there concern that this is a pattern that guys feel like it's acceptable?
Yeah, I definitely don't think guys view it as acceptable. Actually, one of the things that we had done over the summer, probably over the past couple summers, is talk to a number of experts in this area, and it probably goes to to Tony's question in terms of the education piece for us, where there isn't always necessarily a pattern in terms of the demographic or the population, and the incidents can take a variety of forms, not necessarily speaking to our specific players. And so that really kind of led to our approach to really kind of ramp up the education to make sure that there was enough awareness, strong awareness, and honestly, so guys realize it's not just this could be someone else type problem, and how important it is to have the tools ready for healthy relationships and good partnerships.
Andrew, sorry, go ahead.
What does specific programming and resources look like in that regard for this organization? What are some of the things that you guys have implemented here?
Yeah, so in 2024, we invited Sabrina Greenlee. She spoke about her story directly to our guys. We actually invited Lisa Friel, who's the Senior Vice President, Special Investigations for the NFL. She obviously sees all these incidents across the league. To talk to and educate our guys, we actually, replaced that education module because you have a couple mandates from the league, but we thought Lisa and her team would actually be more effective in that space. We also added a module regarding sextortion and some of the situations in that case to make sure that our guys understand what these situations can look like and what are the proper resources and tools so that they can make sure that we have the behaviors that quite honestly are acceptable in the community.
Andrew, last year, Mike Hall was back out here on the field the day after his arrest in Avon, and so I'm wondering, did you guys learn from that? Was that too soon? And if that was the case, so be it. But why is this situation so different where it's taking so long to figure out what's going on?
So Mary Kay, that probably goes back to what I talked about earlier in terms of the information that we had at the time. All these situations are different and unique, and the information that we had at the time with Mike was different than Quinshawn. The other thing I'd add is any decision for follow-up, whether it's reintegration or discipline or removal from team activities, those decisions aren't made in a vacuum. Those aren't football decisions. They're with a variety of people that have different expertise, many of whom aren't in football operations. So each situation is different, and I would be, I don't think you should necessarily map one to the other.
Is the league involved in this process in sort of helping you guys determine what the right course of action right now is with Quinshawn?
You always stay in communication with the league, so there always is some natural dialogue. But honestly, the league's role is probably more in the in any potential investigation or vetting as opposed to that.
So Andrew, is it the vetting?
Let me go here and then I'll go to you, Daryl.
So Andrew, is the framework of a contract there because the logjam of second round picks is resolved? It's just there's a pause on it from both sides.
Yeah, I'd say in general, obviously the second round was unique this year. Now it's pretty well slotted. Whether there's a formal framework in place, maybe the technical answer is no, but in terms of where that slot should land, that's pretty straightforward. Go ahead, Daryl.
How confident are you? You should go through your vetting process, and you're going across the country doing research on just a wide range of guys. How confident are you that the information that you're receiving, especially from the red flag character portion, you're getting the full picture, you're getting an accurate picture? I understand that you're talking about employment and there's some sensitivities in there as well, but do you feel like that people are being open and honest with you when it comes to some of these prospects and the pre-draft information you're gathering?
Yeah, I think a big part of the pre-draft process is knowing who the reliable sources are. But Daryl, when we talk about vetting, it's not about just flying in, talking to a position coach or talking to a support staff. Pretty extensive legal checks, pretty extensive background checks, whether that's with compliance office on campus. We actually employ a third-party company that does all of our security and background. So everything from if a guy has a speeding ticket to something more serious, that's something that's accessible to us. That being said, it's funny, we had Monty McNair in for we used to call it Scout School. It's a football operations summit. Former general manager of the Sacramento Kings. And we were talking about background process. How did you guys go about it with the Kings? And he was saying, one of the things they study is just like anything else, it can be noisy. To your point, where it's okay, how many guys that we identified as, let's say, tough or smart or whatever, ended up actually being that, and the reality that in their sense, things change. But to get back to the broader point, Daryl. It is important to we have a large web of sources. It is important to know who's reliable, but to leave it at just maybe hearsay is the wrong term, but to leave it at just an interview on a campus with a coach or an academic advisor, that's that's not nearly enough, and we use way more resources than that. Let me do Scott first, and then I'll do you, Tony.
From a football perspective, Andrew, I mean, you spent the 36th pick on the draft on him, and you don't know when he's gonna, if he's gonna be, when he's gonna be. So how big a blow is that, especially to an offense that wants to recommit to the run game?
I'd say this: we'll deal with that day to day, and we'll see where we shake out in that position room. I think we're excited for a number of individuals who are in that room, and we kind of really want to see how things play out, certainly in the short term, before making any quick judgments or assessments.
Speaking of speeding tickets, what was your opinion of Shedur's 2 excessive speed violations?
Not smart. Just not smart, and it's something that we've addressed with him. He understands the implications. He understands the consequences. And I think the thing is, like, it's not just about yourself, right? It's not just about having a joyride. It's not just about driving a car really fast, but it's about the fact that you can endanger other people. It's about the fact that if a deer or someone, cuts out in front of you, like your reaction time, it's just dangerous. And it's not something that we want our guys to be doing. It's not something that they should be doing. And the number one reason is because we don't want some type of catastrophic accident. Like, right, we saw that, 2 years ago in, what was it, Dallas or Houston with a player. And in that incident, everybody was lucky to walk away, and we don't want that occurring with anyone in our organization.
And Andrew, on football, quarterbacks, do you see a pathway to have 4 on the opening day roster?
I do.
Is that in light of the asset that a quarterback is, or having 69 with the practice squad, you can kind of hide?
I'd say this is like. We've largely looked at the last 5 spots of a roster as more developmental spots, and that can come from any position. I also think with the roster flexibility nowadays, especially with like the elevations that you're able to have on the practice squad, there's just more flexibility in terms of how to build your 48-man game day roster, where it's maybe not quite as restrictive in the past. Now, that being said, when roster rules were more, let's say, draconian, there have been teams that have carried 4. So if there are 4 that are 53-man worthy, and we think it makes the most sense for us to keep them, we will.
Andrew, as you've progressed throughout your GM career here, do you think your philosophy on players with character concerns has shifted at all? Have you become less averse over the years?
I wouldn't say that, Nate, that I've become, just you said, less adverse. I'd say, honestly, like, that typically has not been a well where we want to dip into it aggressively. Now, what issues, like, I think character can at times be a very broad term. Like, what issues that we think that we can support. I'd say that's maybe more what weaknesses we say we can support. Like, whether a guy has a mental concern or some issue with life skills, things like that. Those are things that we can support. But players with maybe more serious issues, like, we typically haven't had an appetite for those guys.
Andrew, when it comes to the decision on the starter, I wanted to ask, like, will that solely be a Kevin decision? And I want to frame it in the context of, you already acknowledged that you required an extra first-round pick in the draft that's supposed to be stronger than quarterback. We have 2 rookie quarterbacks. Most people would just say it behooves you to, like, see what you have in those guys, as opposed to putting Joe or Kenny out there. So, like, how will you as the general manager kind of
That's good. It's a good question, right? Like, because look, let's call it what it is. There, like, at times is maybe a little bit of tension in terms of future versus present. But, like, that's really not the way that we look at it, Daniel. We look at it as like, hey, let's have all these guys out there. Let's see how they perform. Let's see what their strengths and weaknesses are, and build an offensive support around the starter when Kevin's ready to name it. I would say more generally to your question, Kevin and I might be the only ones who talk more about the quarterback position than you all, throughout the next couple weeks, and it's something that we'll talk about consistently. I think you guys know us well enough that we work really well together in that regard. But at the end of the day, like, I trust him. You know what I mean? Like I trust his discretion. I trust our coaching staff in terms of who they want to play, and I think we'll get a lot more information over the upcoming weeks.
We're going to take a couple more.
Andrew, along the lines, go back to running back real quick. I know you said you're excited about the guys that are here in that room, but is there any thought to, especially this time of year when you want a lot of bodies in camp, potentially adding anybody to the roster in that team specifically?
If there's a player that makes sense, of course, and that would be across any position. In terms of, let's say, the more tactical of functioning through camp or getting through the next several days, I think we're in a good spot. We'll hopefully be in an even better spot as we work through a couple minor tweaks and injuries, things like that.
Andrew, you won 3 games last year. Mm-hmm. So what are realistic expectations for this team? It was not a real good product to watch or anything like that.
Yeah, and Terry, I think I probably tell you every year when we do the interview before week 1. Every year is unique. Every year is unique. Every year is different. It's not. I was reading something. With my former team, the Eagles, where they were bristling at the notion of being called defending champions and saying hey, we're not defending anything. That was 2024. We're in 2025. And that's right. That's the case. We see it every year in the NFL. I think right now, Terry, our mentality is let's learn this team during training camp. Let's get good, meaningful, competitive reps. Let's see how young players can progress. Let's determine roles, and then we'll go from there. The expectation talk, things like that. That'll be a conversation for another day. I'm sure I'll have just as unsatisfying of an answer. But, we're really looking forward to really doing the work and dealing with it on day-to-day basis.
We got 3 more. You put the roster together, and you looked at what was last year, and you brought on these guys for this year. When you look at this, why would you think it's going to be better?
Yeah, I think, Terry, that we are very optimistic about a number of the players that we have on the roster. Quite honestly, I really like where our offensive scheme and our offensive coaching staff is. And I think the benefit of having a lot of young players that are likely, we'll see how the roles shake out, but get more playing time is there are a wide range, really quite honestly, in both directions of outcomes for that specific spot. So I think this is a year where we have the opportunity to see a lot of growth with some of the players who are going to be given and earn new opportunities, but like I said, we're going to be focused on the work.
Would you personally attend the Texas-Ohio State game?
I'm sorry?
Would you attend the Texas-Ohio State game?
I can't tell you all my secrets, Tony.
Mary Kay?
Andrew, I wanted to ask you about your 2 PUP guys in Mike Hall and Deshaun.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an update on when you think those guys might be ready to roll?
So I tried to do this well last year, and I was so wrong in terms of what I told you guys that I'm sorry this year I'm going the day-to-day route. I just yes, we have an idea in terms of when we think they may hit the field. I have just learned by just being so wrong on that with the tackles last year that I'm gonna go the GM speak day to day, and we'll see how they go.
So just to follow up on that, so you put JOK on the season-ending pup.
Correct.
So does this mean that you have hope that Deshaun will be contribute to you this sometime on the field?
Jeff, I'd say we're dealing with Deshaun and Mike on a day-to-day basis. JOK's admittedly just it's just a unique situation, with his injury. So that's a lot different than the other PUP guys. Daniel?
No, I was just gonna ask about Deshaun as well. I mean, I was gonna say in the initial statement, you guys said he's gonna miss most of the season. Mm-hmm. So if that hasn't changed, how likely is it? How feasible is it that he really can't play this season?
We'll see day to day.
Last one, Chris.
Andrew, you said there's a possibility of keeping all 4. 2 years ago, you were in a position where you traded away a veteran, mm-hmm. and then what transpired, and it kind of put you in a bind where you were forced to play a young guy. Do you, if you're in kind of the same spot, how much does that, what you went through in 23 kind of
Inform 25. Yeah, it's a good question, Chris. I think the main difference in that year is we were at 3. So I think I've said multiple times on the record that as long as we have 3 quarterbacks that we think are 53-man worthy, we'd like to keep 3. That was a situation where we felt like the opportunity, again, kind of wrestling with a little bit the short term versus the long term, was too good to pass up. Was too good to pass up in 2023, and we were able to manage it and obviously make the playoffs and everything. But that's maybe a little bit different than where we sit today. If like we're in a situation and we receive some trade offer for one of the guys and we're sitting with 4 guys on the active roster, that might be a different set of conversations and considerations than if we were having 3 planned until literally like the last week of the preseason. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's him.
Who's this?
Put that one on.
That's me.
You're welcome. If I have time, I'll come back. Sorry, Dan. I want to whip you.
Yes, I will. Is it on?
It's running.
You want it the other way?
How we doing, guys?
Good. How are you, Kev?
Good. Okay, fire away.
Jerome Ford, is he back today?
He will not practice today, but he's progressing well.
Did that happen in the conditioning?
No, this was something over the last couple of weeks, maybe, but he'll be okay.
What about David and Jordan Hicks?
David will be out there today. Jordan won't be out there today, but no update. I will update you guys when appropriate on Jordan.
Kevin, could you expound on the importance of play action passing game in the Browns offense?
How much time do I have? I think it's important probably to most offenses, and the things that we do in our play action game are going to be different than other teams, and I think there's so much. That's the fun part for me as a coach. A lot of teams run the same plays, including the same play actions, but there's so much nuance to those play actions and what you're asking the line to do on those plays, what you're asking your receivers and tight ends to do, how you read it as a quarterback, what steps you take with the quarterback. So play action really gets lumped into a big, wide swath of the game. There's some sort of play fake from the quarterback to another player. Sometimes it's not just the running back. And you can be under center, you can be in the gun, you can pull a guard, you can do it off of all sorts of different actions. So we want to have a varied scheme in general, and certainly play action is a part of that, and only because we feel like it is hard on a defense. I think a good play action a good play action scheme, a team that's good at play action, that's hard on a defense. And I know, speaking to defenders, being a former defender myself, I know it's hard when something looks like one thing and it ends up being the other.
Have your rookies done much of the play action or anything? Or even
Quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Both guys have done some.
Before they got here.
Yep. Some have done some in college. Guys are. The game in some ways is the same. In some ways it's so different. So they're very fortunate to have Coach Musgrave giving them all the ins and outs of ball handling and footwork, whether it applies to play action or anything. Coach Muss is a stickler for all the mechanics that go with playing the position.
Can you explain why you got away from that philosophy last year? It worked so well for you
in the past?
Yeah, honestly, Jeff, not so focused on anything in the past. Really just focused on what we're doing right now. And, again, your offensive scheme is dependent on who your guys are, what they're comfortable with, what they're good at, what's your offensive line look like, and then obviously the big influence from Coach Reese, Coach Bloomgren, that type of thing.
Do you embrace this kind of sweltering heat for your guys, or what's your message to them, or do you worry about people having issues?
Well, certainly worry about it. I mean, we're going to make sure we're safe out here. That'll never change. So we don't want to put our guys in anything that's ever not safe. So having said that, there is part of acclimating to the heat and doing it in a very smart way. So we'll be out here for a shorter amount of time, like as we ramp up into training camp per the rules. We'll get our work done. We'll take a couple breaks to make sure everybody's getting hydrated. Our dietitians are doing a great job inside, making sure everybody's getting everything they need from a hydration standpoint. You guys need to hydrate, okay? I don't want to losing anybody out here.
Will Deontay be out there? It looked like he was dinged up.
Yeah, no, he'll be out there.
Kevin, after Shedeur had those speeding tickets, did you talk to him personally, and what's your message?
I did. Obviously, I'll keep that message between Shedeur and myself, but I will tell you, he knows this, and all of our rookies know this. They need to make sure that they're being safe, and that can be whether they're behind the wheel of a car or they're in and around town. They need to make really good decisions so that they're safe.
Kevin, with the quarterbacks, any worry or discussion at all about not letting the competition interfere with their day-to-day?
I've talked to our guys. Competing for a starting role is not new to football, not new to the quarterback position. That's just part of what we're doing. And that's not the only position where guys are competing for a job. I know that with the number of guys, I know that's the part that's unique, but they're all wired the right way. They know to keep the main thing the main thing.
It looked like Schlesinger yesterday was doing the signal calling. How does a raw rookie earn the trust from the coaches to do that? It's very unusual.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Carson's uniquely situated. If we need him to do that, he's capable of doing that. I think what you're trying to find out from Carson and all of our rookies is what they're capable. We're trying to find out about them. What are they capable of? Can you call a defense? Can you, and not just Carson, I'm saying, can you line up on the edge and rush the passer? Can you line up in the backfield and catch a ball if you're, a wide receiver? We're trying to put those guys in different spots to find out what they are capable of. That's our job right now in training camp as we formulate this roster, as we get this team ready. I don't know that we know the football team in July like you do when you get to September.
Kevin, you guys added a lot of wide receivers this offseason. I understand a component of that had to do with how you wanted to manage these quarterbacks, but outside of Jerry and Cedric, what are you hoping to see in this camp from the rest of that position group to give you the confidence that no matter who you put on the field, you're going to be able to go out there and make a play when you have to?
I think it's a really good group, Daryl. I think there's different skill sets throughout that group. Obviously, there's size with some guys. There's a little bit quicker, fast with other guys. Guys that are better inside, guys that are better outside. So that's our job, to identify the traits and then design an offense to utilize those traits. So I really like that group.
Kevin, what do you think with Duncan's off for a while? Obviously, Samson, I can see just moves up. What about him as a player? How do you see him?
Yeah, I like a lot of things about Dylan Terry. I think he's proven to be really, really intelligent, which we knew that you do so much homework on these guys and you put them through the process prior to the draft. So I knew that he could handle a lot, but I've been really impressed with he picks things up very quickly. He doesn't make the same mistake twice. He fits in well. He works really hard. Got a great personality. He's gonna push himself out here, which I see him doing. And then, kind of to Tony's question earlier, we got to find out what he's capable of. We have to see what he can do in this offense, and then if he earns that role, can we expand that role?
Kevin, what about Joe mentioned that the intensity factor of the training camp is really a mental thing. It's about wanting to win and being focused on winning. As a coach, is there a tangible way to maybe help install that mindset that you guys are looking forward to get the most out of camp in that regard?
Yeah, I think certainly football, you have to be right mentally to play this game, and So much of this, our game, is about winning and losing, and is about getting ready for September. But there's all the little dirty work, the little things in this building that no one notices that have to get you ready for that. So I think, at least mentality-wise, for our football team, we recognize that the season's coming in September, but man, we got so much work to do. We some physical work, some mental work, but we're just going to keep our head down and focus on that work.
Kevin, what have you thought? Go ahead, Scott.
When we talked to Deuce, I think it was minicamp, he talked about Dylan being used a lot in the slot. Has there been a shift given the situation running back where now he's more in the backfield maybe than he had been in the outside?
I think, well, there's Deuce. We can ask Deuce. I think more than anything, that's a product of seeing what these guys can do. So I wouldn't say we're carving out those roles just yet. It's more we want to see what a guy's capable of, because in this day and age, as you know, versatility is really important. So if that's something he can do, but I think we're still in wait-and-see mode on Dylan in that regard, but also for a bunch of these guys.
Kevin, what have you thought of Mason Graham, just because he did a couple pass rushing camps and worked with Malik since then, the mini camp and coming in here?
Yeah, he's worked very, very hard going back to the day he got on campus here with our coaches. He worked very hard when he was away from the building before getting those guys back. But that's another young player who I think is going to get better every day, because he's attacking it. He's not a finished product. He wants to work at it, and that's the right attitude for a young man like that.
How has the line looked since he's gotten back?
Yeah, good. I mean, we're only one practice in, but he's doing a nice job. Obviously, is working really well with his new coaches, understanding there's some different nuance to what we're doing. There's different terminology, those type of things. So working very hard.
Good.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Evan, did you see the
Hydrate.
Oaks is at prime time start now?
Really?
Starting next year.
Have to be there.
Is this me? No, it's not. Who's got a prime time start?